Hey, this is Jasmine. Have you ever wanted to know what is the latest and greatest of businesses, entrepreneurs, musicians, and artists around the world? Have you ever wondered, why did they make that choice, where they're going, and how can I support them? Well, you come to the right place. If you haven't heard already, I have some amazing guests all the way from Africa and as close as Texas, where I live. Check out Noise Zion podcast on Spreaker, Spotify, Apple, iHeart, and 30 plus other platforms. Today's guest is Dr. Ellenmorris Tiegerman. She is the founder and CEO of Tigerman Schools and Community Services. This prolific professor, she tells her journey, specifically a program that is focused for children of a variety of disabilities. Her heart of gold made it her mission to create a program in hoping to reach over 400,000 children in the world. Please give a warm welcome to ever-blessed Dr. Ellenmorris Tiegerman.
Hello.
Hello, Jasmine. How are you?
I'm very well. How are things for you?
Okay, good. It's so nice to meet you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for even coming on my minuscule podcast.
It's my pleasure.
I had looked at your website that are you a professor or just a teacher? You're Dr. Ellenmorris. Can you tell me a little bit more on your field and the reason why you chose this journey in creating an academy? I'm guessing that that's correct, or a school institution?
Yes. So I was a professor at Adelphi University, which is located on Long Island, for about 22 years. And in 1985, I met a family at the Speech and Hearing Center at the university, and I worked with a little boy, Jonathan Davis, whose mother has become a very close friend of mine. And in working with Jonathan, I recognized that he needed a very special school. And when he graduated from the Adelphi program, his mother went to look to see if she could have him placed in a special school, and she couldn't find anything that she found to be appropriate. And she came back to see me at the university, and I said to her, Toya, how hard could it possibly be to find a school? And we went looking. We couldn't find anything for Jonathan. So I had a conversation with Toya about starting a school. And in September of 1985, I opened up a school for special children, just like Jonathan. And I have operated this school as the founder and CEO for the past 36 years. Okay. So it is a special school. We go preschool all the way up through high school. At this point, we have 4 campuses. We have 2 in Queens. We have 2 in Glen Cove on Long Island. So we have an elementary school, a middle school, a high school, and a K-12 autism program, which is located in Woodside, Queens.
Wow, wonderful. That is, I commend you on this journey. That is a lot under your belt, and I'm glad that you've actually found your passion in regards to that, because you're absolutely correct to the lack of schools that have that type of program. I have a 9-year-old that is a sensory processing disorder child that falls on the autism spectrum. So, in briefly, could you explain to the listeners exactly what the learning method, what that entails in your institution, your facility?
Okay, so I believe that all children with disabilities share a common problem, which is a language processing disorder. And there are many different labels in the industry in special education: learning disability, autism, emotional disturbance, intellectual disability. I'm sure you've heard, Jasmine, all of the possible labels. Okay. Mm-hmm. I don't believe in any of those labels. Mm-hmm. What I believe is that all of these children have a language processing problem. So the Tigerman Method is really a transdisciplinary approach where you get together with a speech pathologist, a special education teacher, an occupational therapist, a physical therapist, all of the special people who work with your son, with your child, okay? And you put them all together and you have them share all of their goals and all of their objectives. So they're all working on very common themes. They're all working together, okay? They're all organized to focus on very language-specific objectives, okay? Mm-hmm. So that's the Tigerman Method. It really is a focus on language. It's all about teaching children how to communicate effectively in a social setting, learning how to interact socially, learning how to ask questions, learning about the experience in a social setting, and using words, using language to code all of those experiences.
Mm-hmm. I completely concur with that analogy because I loathe the idea of putting my child in a label. There was so many times that I had fought with the system, identifying, what can we do to make it more a positive in his educational journey in the schools, and they would fight tooth and nail about, well, he is a problem child. He doesn't know how to sit down. He has issues with interacting with other children. He has I call it the deer in the headlight look, because that means he's overstimulated in an environment. And then all of a sudden they call me, they identify that he goes into ISSS, which is in-school suspension, because he's not able to calm down. He's becoming verbally or vocally loud in class, disrupting in classes. I mean, I've had the whole spiel. I've done the IEP, I've done the 504, I've done the occupational therapy, the behavioral therapy. You probably have heard it 1,000 times. And I personally was exhausted of having to find that nobody wanted to work with him and this new label that he has. He has been transferred to, they were trying to identify that he should go to an alternative school. I'm like, for bad children. And I'm like, he's not a bad child. Mm-hmm. You have to find a way to provide proper resources and tools in a teacher who has been trained in understanding that, all students are not cookie cutter students. They all have different levels of education and learning process. Some learn by, and we do it as adults today. We identify, we learn better when someone shows us visually or by touching a project, or, the different types of levels of our comprehending our skills is on, how we, all using our senses and learning something. And when you have someone identifying that, you're a problem child, we don't want to work with you, that is hard for a child. Their beginning of life to say that nobody loves me, nobody cares about my educational growth. And later on, nobody wants to be in a relationship or having financial issues, or nobody wants to help me out. And they feel completely hopeless and helpless. And that's something, that building block has been completely just demolished. It's not even there. It's not existent. So I'm glad that you actually have an academy that emphasizes on that type of, understanding about the children and their disabilities and disorders and all, and how to deal with it. And like I just mentioned before as well, that you've had a procedure on prospective students who are interested in enrolling in your classes, that they go through the same spiel that I just spewed out about. One of the questions I wanted to know a little bit more about you, when did you first become passionate? So I think you already told me about your parent and so forth, but what kind of challenges do you love to dig into now that you're involved in this even more?
Well, my inspiration started, of course, when I was a child. And just so your listeners understand a little bit about my background, I was with my little sister when we were playing at a park, and she walked up a slide and fell off and had a traumatic brain injury.
Oh, no.
She was hospitalized for several weeks. She was in a coma. And when she came to, she had lost most of her speech and language functions.
Oh.
Okay. And I watched my father work with her for 12 years in a home training program that he personally developed.
Wow.
And it was the most amazing experience for me in terms of, watching on a daily basis what he did with her and how, creative he was, how persistent he was, and how much he really loved her in terms of, his dedication of time and energy.
Mm-hmm.
He never, ever gave up on her. So that's my background. I think the challenges today really relate to keeping the school open and making sure that there is, appropriate funding so that we can support not only the programs, but also the teaching staff. And, funding is a critical issue because particularly in New York State, I don't know where you're coming from, Jasmine, like where
Mm-hmm.
you are in the country, but
Mm-hmm.
here in New York, it's a real problem for special schools like I have. There's a funding difference between public schools and the special education schools. So, for example, a teacher working in a public school might earn $90,000 or $100,000 a year. But in a special school, just for children with disabilities, there's a 30% difference in terms of the salary. So if you work in a special school, you are earning significantly less. And it's really discriminatory. And there's a serious parity issue in these special education schools. So if you think about it, there are about 400,000 students with special education needs attending these special schools. It's a big discrimination problem because there's a parity issue involved. So that's our biggest challenge today.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's a distraction because you really want to focus on taking care of your students and the children in your classroom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to be distracted by something that should come so easily. But like you said, it's very combative to some of the school systems that are set up in a lot of the states. I live in Texas currently, and it was like tooth and nail to even find the proper of anything, any proper education classes to be, customized to his disorder. He had to get those earmuffs. He had to use a tripod pencil. He had to have an OT. I had to pay out of pocket to get an occupational therapist, behavioral therapist, because they didn't even have that program inside the schools.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something for me, as I'm a self-employed. So that was like an arm and a leg in regards to even looking for someone. And within the vicinity of our residential area, I live in a combination of ranch farmland, and the closest place is like 50 miles from here. So it was like going there every 2 weeks. I mean, that was impossible for me. So this has got a lot of hoops and hurdles around trying to get just that. But the point is that you are dealing with that as a broader spectrum, as an educational facility, to find the proper funding. And that definitely needs to be re-looked at and reevaluated, because I think that's very imperative to have that as an option across the world. I'm an advocate. I support that completely. I mean, 1,000%, knowing that I have a child myself that is in the same situation, and there's 400,000 other children like that out there. Yeah, absolutely.
So we have literally 700 families that we support through
Mm-hmm.
these programs. We go preschool all the way up through adult services. And, on the adult side, we have several residences, So we have young adults with disabilities living with us in these group homes. We have daycare services, day treatment programs. We have all kinds of programs that take, individuals with disabilities into the community. We provide transportation. So we offer very comprehensive services straight across the lifespan.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, again, my eyes are definitely wider in this conversation, and I commend you even more than I came into this podcast interviewing with you, because that is a huge challenge. And I mean, I am all for it. If I can find a way to push it, I will help on my end, because I know that we definitely need that type of education option for our children. Absolutely. Because they are our future. There's no way around it. We can't keep cutting corners on the education. I mean, that's the base and foundation of our children. Absolutely. So, and I guess, what is the biggest myth that you see that's, shared as advice over and over again that you've encountered?
That's a great question. And the answer is that individuals with disabilities have extraordinary lives. The myth is that there's no hope. Okay. And that is definitely not correct. Okay. There are wonderful opportunities for children and adults with disabilities. There are phenomenal programs, like I said, group homes, transportation, taking them out into the community, supported employment in terms of job training, vocational training. In fact, just to give you an example, in my high school, I have 2 retail stores. One is a Calvin Klein store, and the other is a Tommy Hilfiger store. Mm-hmm. And what we do is we train all of our high school students how to work in these 2 stores. And they have an internship after they've been in the stores for about a year and a half, 2 years. And we move our young interns, our high school interns, into the community. We travel train them. They take public transportation. They travel to a local Calvin Klein store and a local Tommy Hilfiger store in the community. And they have an internship. So they have an opportunity to meet people and use their job trained experiences that they've been through in the high school. And it's absolutely a phenomenal program for them, because they come out, they are really job ready, work ready. And that, I think, is the most important thing that you can give a student with disabilities. You give him an opportunity to learn to work, to be independent, and to have a full life. And it's just absolutely fantastic.
Yes. Yeah. I used to work for, I think it's a rehabilitation, which was for adults who dealt with different levels of disabilities. And I was the activity coordinator. I kid you not, the program was, they gave me $100 for 1 month of using for supplies for 5 different classrooms of like 20 students per classroom. And that was a challenge just within myself, doing that and creating things and I love to see the smiles on their faces because of something that they're able to accomplish. And I mean, it can be done. You have to have people who have a beautiful heart like yourself, Dr. Ellenmorris. I mean, this is just, we need more people like you. Absolutely.
Oh, thank you, Jasmine.
You're very, very welcome. I guess in closing, if I have, where would be the best place for other people to get to know more about your academy and all the additional programs, and as well as possibly funding your institution? What would be the website that they can go to?
Okay, so my website is www.tigerman.org. You can Google Tigerman on the internet, and the school will come up, and some of the books that I've written will come up. So you can certainly learn about my method and learn about the schools that I've created in New York. And I'll be happy to, if you send me an email with a question, I'll be happy to answer you.
You having 35 plus years under your belt, I would have definitely asked you if you had written any books.
Well, I did do something very interesting, Jasmine, that's outside the box.
Yes.
That is, I decided after all of these years that I was going to do something different. And what I did is I wrote a novel, and it's called Tenure Denied, and it's a murder mystery about past lives.
Oh my gosh, that is awesome. I'm going to definitely page turner for me. Well, have a wonderful weekend again, and it's been an honor so much for you as my guest. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jasmine.
All right, take care. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Noise Paloo Zion podcast. If you yourself is a small business owner, entrepreneur, musician, or artist, or liked what you heard, please share and follow. I am on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, or contact me at www.jasminecastillovoice.com, and stay tuned for the next upcoming episode.